Welcome back to the next video in our silver and gold onboarding series for workshop software. Today what we're going to do is we're going to discuss customer invoicing. And I've broken up the video as per the following, right? We're going to talk about the different ways to navigate to an invoice, all right? Then we're going to talk about the structure of an invoice, which is all about adding labor, parts, and detail to an invoice. And then lastly, we're going to cover off the difference between saving and processing, and also how to take a payment for a customer invoice. So, given that we have quite a lot of work to do, let's get started. Once again, the primary navigation key that I recommend is to come into the top plus sign here and go into a customer invoice, right? But the various different ways that you can actually get to the point of a customer invoice, just remember the icon is an A4 page with the corner folded down. You can do it in the following ways, right? You can create a quote for a customer first. So I'm going to come in here and go customer. And we have Bob Smith. All right. To change an invoice into a quote, what I can do is simply come down into the bottom line here or into the middle of the screen here and go, this is going to be an estimate. All right. Now, in here, I'm going to come in very, very simply and go repair labor, perhaps 3.5 hours worth of work. And I'm just going to throw in some parts. And this is more detail than anything else, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how this all works. Okay, so now I have an estimate for a customer. If I save this, what I can do is I can actually print this off and send it off to the customer. If I were to look at how that estimate looked, as you can see, it's an estimate up here, right? There's all the detail. There's my detail for my estimate, my trading details. There is a description. It's basically labor this much, parts this much, all right? And I can send that off to the customer. If the customer chooses to accept that, I now have an option of turning around, and I'm going to save that for a second, and converting that into a booking. So I simply click on the star on the green bar on the customer invoice line, and I can create a booking from here. Are you sure you want to save the quote and create a booking? Yes, I am. And perhaps I'm going to assign that to a specific mechanic. Let's say that it was going to happen the next day. I would search for my mechanics. Back to good old Harry Newbold. All right, and we're expecting the customer to come in at about 9 o'clock in the morning. So I go there, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I can update that. And what that does is that creates a booking for that quote. All right, and from the when the booking job is started, that will then create the invoice automatically. The second option of how I can do this is I can go straight into a booking, as we covered in the last video. So if I come in here and go Alan again, Alan Jones, great, vehicle, so on and so forth, detail. And the minute that I actually go start job on this booking, that will convert the booking into an invoice. The third, and sometimes the easiest way to do it, depending on the activities or the workflow of the workshop, is to simply come in here and go, I'm going to create a customer invoice. This skips the step of a booking, right? And if I come in here and I can even add a new customer. So if I come in here and I go, I'm going to add a new customer here. Sorry, my mistake. Be good if I could spell Mr. Parsifal's name. And well, once again, I come in here and I need to have some contact details for the customer. There I have it. So I have my customer. I add a vehicle for him. And let's say that it's going to be a Subaru Forester. All right, all good. Save that. Okay, and now it's a matter of coming in and adding parts and labor, right? So in the labor, the way that we recommend that you do it is you either have one of two kinds of labor. One is either called repair labor, which is just straight repair labor, all right, selling at $110 per hour, and it's however many hours I think that job is going to take. And then I simply start adding parts to that. So if I come in here and go Z79, come in and go some plug washer, for example. There we go. Brake parts. All right, that's a calibration kit for a motorcycle, but that's neither here nor there. All right, so I have my labor and I have all my parts. And as mentioned in earlier videos, you would actually assign mechanics for that particular job. All right, and here I can actually start typing in notes, whatever I want the mechanic to be able to do relative to this job. Right. And what I can also do is come in here, copy all of that information, right, and paste that in there for the customer to read on their invoice. Okay, that is what we actually did on that job. That is one way of doing the work, right? I can also come in here and go labor to repair brakes, for example. Okay, so if we have all of that information and we save that, okay, and we have a look at the invoice, this is what the invoice will look like at this point, and it is separating out the labor to repair the brakes, 2.5 hours, right, all the parts that were used on the particular job, a description for the customer to read, and then down at the bottom of the invoice would be the banking details and the invoice terms and conditions if we have any. Right, up here we can see the customer's name, there's their vehicle, so on. All right, now that is another way of doing a job. What I'm going to do is get rid of these. One of the ways that we like to recommend, because we believe that it actually produces a very professional result for your customer and for yourself, and improves the time flow within the workshop, is to use bundles for commonly used jobs. So if I come in here, I should have a minor service bundle. All right. And here I have a complete list of all the parts that would be used if I was doing a minor service on somebody's vehicle. And here I also have a template for a description of a minor service. Very, very easy to use. And here I have a checklist for the mechanic. All right. And use of these particular features within workshop software, all right, can actually speed up the processing and customize and ensure that you have a very controlled workflow where everything that needs to get done on a particular job is done, because it's basically all laid out for the mechanics to do. So in the use of a bundle here, for example, I would sit there and go, I just need to choose the oil filter I want. All right, let's say that's the filter I want. This is going to be repair work. All right, because it's not a recurring service. It's just a simple service. And in here, I pick my engine oil, for example. Great. 5 liters of that. My environmental levy. There we have that. Come in here, 5 of those, because I've replaced 5 liters of dirty oil with 5 liters of new oil. So I need to charge the oil there. In here, as you can see, all I'm doing is picking parts from my existing product list, all right, to fulfill all the requirements in the minor service. Now, in this particular instance, didn't need any of those. I might have some wiper blades. Let's see. There we have it. Wiper blades, 1 set, possibly 2 sets, front and back. Didn't need any spark plugs, and there were no extra items on the invoice. The last thing I have here is my consumables charge. Okay. That is another way of producing an invoice for a customer. All right. And, all right, what I'd like to do now is touch on the difference between processing and saving an invoice. If we're doing a job for a customer, it can be as simple as actually doing this, putting in all of the information here. Then when your mechanic gives you back his job card, you can come in here and put in the tire conditions, right, the brake conditions, et cetera, if required, and any additional notes and observations as well, right? And this can be done, and you can process an invoice, you can save an invoice as many times as you like and make as many changes to it as you like, and you can simply come in here and keep saving the invoice. All right. So this is job card number 50031. And because I've set my settings so that my invoice number and my job card number are going to be the same, I can leave this, go to another job, and then just come back in and start this up again. I go to 50031. There it is. The status of this invoice is open. I pop back into the invoice. When I am absolutely sure that everything has been, all the information that's required for this invoice is here, all the parts are correct, I haven't missed any parts, I've got my description is all done and dusted, then I can come in and process the invoice. And the difference between save and process is that, as I mentioned, you can save as many times as you like, but once you process the invoice, it actually converts it basically into a financial transaction. And it says that Mr. Parsifal now owes us $211.60 as of whatever date the invoice is. The posting date would be the 15th of June, all right? And that would say that basically that would be exactly what we would want the customer to pay us for. Now, the next point I would like to do is we're going to talk about how to process the payment for an invoice, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the dashboard, right? Now, if we come in here, there's several ways of taking a payment as well. I can come in here and go into a customer payment, all right? Or I can go into the customer invoice and process the payment based on what type of customer I have. So if we go back to Wilfred Parsifal, for example, go to 50031, all right? We open up the invoice, and we can see that Mr. Parsifal is a cash customer as opposed to an account customer. If he was an account customer and we were processing his invoice, then his invoice would drop into his file and you would process the payment from there. On the other hand, as is the majority of workshops tend to work on that most of their customers are cash customers. The difference being that the minute the job is finished, right, that is when the customer is expected to pay for it. And in that particular instance, when we process the invoice, we will get a payment window. So if I come in here, it asks me again if I'm sure that I want to save and process the invoice. In other words, it gives me the opportunity to double check to make sure that all the information on the invoice is correct. Once I'm happy with that, I go yes. All right. And now I have a payment window for a cash customer. Now, it's a matter of how Mr. Parsifal is going to pay for his invoice. So it could be that he's going to pay for it by credit card or FPOS, right? Or he's going to pay for it by cash. And I could take the whole amount in one payment method if I wanted to, or I can actually split this as well. So in this particular instance, Mr. Parsifal has decided that he's going to pay $100 in cash, right? Which leaves a balance of $111.60 on his invoice. And he's going to pay the balance of that via his credit card or his debit card on the FPOS machine. So I can come in here and I can process the balance of the invoice as being $111.60. Once I see that the balance is zero, then I can simply process that. That will then go ahead and close that invoice. So we've processed the invoice, which closed the invoice itself, and now we've taken the payment, which actually closes the invoice completely insofar as the invoice has been processed and it's been paid for as well. And it's simply a matter of clicking on process. Now, in the instance that this customer was, for example, an account customer, then what would happen is I would cancel this payment, okay? And as we can see here, we have a processed invoice, which has gone from green to gray. And also here it is, Mr. Parsifal's record, there's his vehicle. Now, the point that I should probably make at this point is every once in a while, you may have a customer who wants to pay part of his invoice on one day and part of his invoice the next day, or the balance of his invoice the next day. In that instance, what we would do is we would cancel the cash payment as I just have. And now it pops into the customer's screen and you come in here and go, I'm going to take a payment for part of that invoice. So there's the customer. The next thing we need to do is we need to find his invoice. So I click on the magnifying glass. I can see his invoice is there, June 15th, $211.60. That is the invoice I'm taking payment for, or partial payment for. And because it's a partial payment, I just want to look at what the applied amount for today is going to be. So he's decided he's going to pay us $150 out of the $211.60. I click on that. Now, I'll get rid of that line. And how does he pay us the $150? Again, even here, you can split the invoice and, for example, take a payment of $50 in cash, and I would apply that, and then take the balance of $100 and apply that. All right. That still leaves us a balance for the next day of $61.60. But on this particular date, the customer payments that you will see in the system would be $50 cash payment and $100 come across the FPOS machine. And I would simply come in there and process that. Ask me if I'm sure that I want to save and process this payment. Quite sure. Thank you. And there we have it. Right. So that is how you take payments. That is how you create your customer invoices and add parts, labor, and any detail that you want. And also the different navigation methodologies for how to create a customer invoice in the first place. That's from quote to booking to invoice, or from booking to invoice, or from quote to invoice. Thank you very much for watching this video, and please stay tuned for our next one.